Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Lucas and you are tuned into Blues News Media. Now, if you have internet access and a pulse, you are fully aware that the country is on fire right now. And it seems to be on fire because another cop has killed another black man. His name was George Floyd, and he and his family deserve all of our prayers. Part of me says don't watch the video because it is wholly disturbing. It's horrifying. It is traumatizing. But another part of me says, you need to witness what a lot of police departments have become in this modern age of oppression, mostly directed towards communities of color. It's scary. It's disturbing. So we're going to talk about the riots and everything going on, and we're going to tie it back into the coronavirus as well, because it all comes down to that nowadays, doesn't it? But before I get into that, I do want to mention something about the conspiracy theory realm that I often tread into. Many people believe that everything is a staged event. They think either George Floyd didn't die, or that he was sedated by the police, or that he was killed, but he was like, with a bunch of things going on in the video, he was actually sacrificed to Satan. I've seen all these things and many, many more, and it's frustrating because there's no evidence usually. It's wild speculation packaged neatly up to make it look like, oh, look how much I know, and if people don't agree, they just don't get it. To anybody that is producing that sort of content or is buying into that sort of content and then spreading it around, I need to let you know, if your goal is to wake people up, you're going about it completely the wrong way. You need to present evidence. You need to back up your claims with evidence so people will take you seriously. Otherwise, people that are trying to question the narratives that are being presented to us, that are questioning what's actually going on, you alienate all of us in your delusions of grandeur, of everything is a staged event, and you're not helping anybody. The general public is then repulsed by what all of us have to say by your actions. So please, I'm not saying don't have these thoughts, but maybe consider keeping them within the realm of your own friends and not portraying it everywhere, because you are hurting more than you are helping. Now, with that out of the way, I do want to go over some things that I find very interesting with these protests and in relation to the coronavirus. And to blanket everything that I'm about to present here for you, I do want to bring this to your attention first, actually. So back in 2010, the Rockefeller Foundation came out with a paper, and it was called, hold on, let me get you the actual title here. I'll put this in the show notes for everybody to go read. It's only 54 pages long, chock full of great information. Highly recommend everybody go and read this. But it is called Scenarios for the Future of Technology and International Development. Again, this was produced by the Rockefeller Foundation back in 2010. Now, the basic scenario is that a pandemic occurs and puts the entire world into quite the tizzy, quite the frenzy. And within this scenario, they also predicted that it would be a new influenza strain. It says it right here. So again, this is just the scenario called Lockstep. But in 2012, the pandemic that the world has been anticipating for years finally hit. Unlike 2009's H1N1, this new influenza strain originating from wild geese was extremely virulent and deadly. And Though we have another winged species that it is allegedly um, coming from, i.e., bats, uh, influenza, incredibly contagious and allegedly incredibly deadly. Even though I strongly suggest you go look at the last episode, evidently that is not entirely true, just what they portrayed. But within the scenario Lockstep, it talks about how after some strong authoritarian measures are implemented, there is a growing citizen pushback. People become more and more frustrated with the government and take to the streets. Now, with this George Floyd thing going on, it is it's kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. We are mad at the government. I know you are. I know I am. They have helped plunder the global economy for their billionaire, soon to be trillionaire friends, while increasing military spending, continuing the wars, giving out giant handouts to various countries that, i.e., I mean, mainly Israel. People are mad. People have lost their jobs. But we just reached 40 million people on unemployment. People are pissed. So it's understandable when another horrifying death is presented to us. We what are those called? Like a snuff film. People are mad and they're taking to the streets. So it makes sense. Like, I think these are completely organic protests and riots that are taking place. But the thing is, it appears as if they planned for this, though. It's almost as if they saw this coming. Not that they pre-planned it, but they planned for it. Because then within this document, it talks about how to bring about martial law, how to bring about more top-down authoritarian control amongst all this pushback. And it is incredibly spot on. I mean, this was from 2010, 10 years ago, and it's kind of predicted everything. It's been following this weird playbook. And if you heard of Event 201 that took place back in, I think it was October or November of 2019, they predicted a novel coronavirus would sweep the nation, and it's almost as if they are stating what is going to happen before they do it. So, I mean, is it connected? I don't know, but they've certainly planned for these sorts of scenarios. And there is one part here that I would love to read for you. So it says, during the pandemic, national leaders around the world flexed their authority and imposed airtight rules and restrictions, from the mandatory wearing of face masks to body temperature checks at the entries to communal spaces like train stations and supermarkets. And we see that rolling out now. Even after the pandemic faded, and we've been seeing it's been rapidly fading, but we'll get into that later. This more authoritarian control and oversight of citizens and their activities stuck and even intensified, like we've been speaking about, in order to protect themselves from the spread of increasingly global problems, from pandemics and transnational terrorism to environmental crises and rising poverty. Leaders around the world took a firmer grip on power. At first, the notion of a more controlled world gained wide acceptance and approval. And we've been seeing a lot of acceptance to this authoritarian power grab. Citizens willingly gave up some of their sovereignty and their privacy. And we've been giving up a lot of privacy, especially around geolocation, to more paternalistic states in exchange for greater safety and stability, or in name, safety and stability. Citizens were more tolerant and even eager for top-down direction and oversight, and national leaders had more latitude to impose order in the ways they saw fit. In developed countries, this heightened oversight took many forms, like biometric IDs for all citizens, and We see that rolling out too. And tighter regulation of key industries whose stability was deemed vital to national interest. In many developed countries, enforced cooperation with the suite of new regulations and agreements slowly but steadily restored both order and, importantly, economic growth. So, so even though this was written back in 2010, it is eerily similar to how things are unraveling just 10 years later in 2020. That's why I strongly recommend everybody to read this. It's almost like a little playbook of what potentially could be coming down the pipeline. Now, so that was all very interesting. And I do want to mention that many of us conspiracy theorists, I suppose you could say, back when the coronavirus was first really taking off in the United States, we were worrying about or sounding the alarm that martial law could be coming. Troops could be on the streets. National Guard could be enforcing quarantines and all that jazz. Now, that never exactly happened. No, we had examples of some streets being locked down, but as a rule of like a national lockdown, that never happened. And thank God for that. Am I right? But one thing that in late March, early April, a lot of people were warning about were all of these. Let me play this here for you. Movements of equipment. Like here, you have all these Humvees that were being rolled out. And this is just one, I think this was by Chicago. But there, you saw this all over the country. There was like a bunch in California. There was a bunch in New York. There was some going on in Wisconsin, where I'm from. And so it wasn't an isolated incident. Like this was another one. You gonna play for me? It doesn't want to play. But this is another one. This one was from LA. They saw a bunch of tanks rolling out. Now, maybe it's just me, but it's kind of curious. When you saw all these, heavy-duty military equipment moving to major metropolitan areas at the rise of this COVID-19 scare, and they were never utilized. But now, only a couple of months later, we have this civil unrest exploding, truly just exploding throughout the country, with already thousands of National Guard troops activated currently in, I believe, every state, if I'm not mistaken, if not that, the majority of them. And we haven't really seen these things rolled out yet. If things get really dire, if they are really going to, and I believe, crack down on these protests, these riots, these might be coming into play then. These might be why they were moved, because they already ran a war game or published a paper stating that the public would get distrustful of government. There would be great unrest directed towards the state. I'm not saying they did this all because they had it all planned out. They knew that this was going to happen when it happened. But certainly they did not forget about this little paper when the pandemic started to unfurl across the land. Then another thing I do want to mention is that while they have this equipment to basically crush rebellious cities as they arise, we also apparently see, potentially, there's no hard evidence yet, of police provocateurs being utilized in these protests in Minneapolis. Now, this is not confirmed at all. I mean, though you could say, yeah, their eyes look similar. I've heard that, this is a police-issued gas mask. But there have been reports of cops all throughout the country, smashing windows, doing graffiti to inflame the situation, to incite violence. And it's called police or agent provocateurs. And this is a old tactic of having the police respond in a more brutal fashion to crush dissonance wherever they see it. We saw this in more recent memory at the Standing Rock protests for the pipeline. We saw that back in the day with the Occupy Wall Street movement of 08, 09, that there was a lot of instances with that. A lot with the Black Lives Matter movement that was happening. And you can even trace it back all the way to the LA riots in the early 90s. So that's not a conspiracy theory. That is a tactic that is used by police departments in order to justify stronger measures to crush protesters. And I'm not surprised that we're seeing it now, and to dismiss it, I think, would be incredibly foolish. I mean, you already know that they had this stuff planned. It's not a far stretch to say that, yeah, they are using agent provocateurs to inflame the situation, to potentially utilize their fun little toys, and to roll out a harder martial law in these more tighter metropolitan areas, just to see, probably just to float of how the people would react. And I don't want to call for violence or anything, but I think that people should stand up to that if they decide to do that. It'd be a very dangerous precedent that would be laid out for everybody. But that was a lot of what I did want to mention. And I strongly suggest that you all read that Rockefeller paper, and I'll have it in the show notes. It's fascinating and a little scary. But also, what I wanted to mention before I let you guys go is that naturally the coronavirus is not done being pushed onto all of us. That fear is going to keep being pushed in all of our faces. And I was thinking about this as the riots were unfolding. I mean, you saw some people with face masks and everything, but you didn't really see social distancing. And a lot of the major mainstream media reporting on this George Floyd thing are not really concerned about the coronavirus right now. But they have already threatened that there will be a second wave, there will be a third wave, and I'm sure you can bet in some form or another there will be a fourth and there will be a fifth. They're already, and I view this as a threat. It's not a warning, it's a threat that America will see its darkest winter this fall and winter. And I think this is laying the groundwork. We Americans are incredibly short-sighted and have a small attention span. I'm surprised that we were worked up about the coronavirus for however many months it's been now, 3 or 4. So naturally, with the weather warming up, and honestly, the narrative around the origins of the coronavirus crumbling, they needed the next thing. What was it? What would it be? Maybe it's the thing that they planned for. Civil unrest. A summer of violence. And with that violence, a strong authoritarian crackdown. And come winter, you'll hear reports that this thing is spreading, it's exploding, possibly mutating, at which point the vaccine they're working on would be useless. But related to the coronavirus as well, we see this. Minnesota health officials. Protests will accelerate the spread. So they're already planting those seeds right now for you. And they're saying they understand why you're upset, and you should be, but just please social distance, please wear masks. Otherwise, the coronavirus will never, ever go away. And as we've discussed before, it was never meant to go away. It's meant to be the new war on drugs. It's meant to be the new war on terror. It's the war on disease, the war on the virus. It will never end. This is your new forever war. And it's horrifying to look at. Anyway, these are just my thoughts. They're not predictions or anything. I don't know where this is going to go. Nobody really does. What I really wanted to bring to your attention was that Rockefeller paper of Lockstep and a crackdown on civil unrest to implement essentially martial law, stronger top-down authoritarian control. So I hope you all go read that. I think it's more important now than ever. But anyway, I do want to say, stay safe, stay healthy. Evidently, the revolution will not be televised, but it will be live streamed. And as our dear, powerful President Trump said, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. And if that is not a sign of what they have planned to come from all of this, I don't know what is, or what will convince you. But as always, if you like this, please like, share, subscribe, or just share the document. Whatever it is, I don't really care. Just get this out to people. Get this out and warn them. Tell them what is to come. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, SoundCloud, BitChute, Library, Minds, all of those great platforms. Please reach out if you have an article that you want us to go over or a topic. We would love to hear from you. I am Lucas of Blues News Media, and as always, if you take one thing away from this, hopefully it'll be this: ignorance isn't bliss.